The spaceport of Karen Prime was never silent. Even in its calm moments it breathed. Floors hummed with hidden power lines. Ceiling lights drifted like slow stars. Voices from 100 species mixed into one endless sound of leaving. Ships arrived, ships departed, and no one looked back. At Gate 9, a simple human stood alone. His name was Elias Wren. He wore a plain gray jacket and carried no bags. His ticket floated softly above his palm, glowing blue. It was a long-distance pass, rare and costly, meant for a flight beyond the galactic rim. For many, that journey was a once-in-a-lifetime dream. For Elias, it was just another road. Around him, aliens hurried. Tall ones with silver skin, short ones with mechanical limbs. Creatures that floated, crawled, or walked on too many legs. Some laughed, some argued. Some clutched family members tightly, afraid of the long jump through folded space. No one noticed the human. The boarding announcement echoed gently. Final call for Starway Transit Vessel Aurora Crest, Gate 9. Elias stepped forward. The gate lights turned green. The boarding tunnel opened like a mouth of light. Then something small broke the flow. A soft sound, not loud, not urgent, just a dull, painful thud. Elias stopped. Near the wall, away from the moving crowd, an elderly alien had fallen. His body was thin and fragile. His skin was pale blue, cracked with age like frozen glass. One arm trembled as he tried to push himself up. His metal walking staff lay a short distance away, just beyond his reach. People passed. Some glanced, some slowed, no one stopped. The alien's breathing grew uneven. His chest device blinked red, then dimmed. Fear filled his wide eyes, not fear of pain, but fear of being ignored. Elias looked at the boarding gate. The countdown timer flashed, 30 seconds. He could still make it. He thought of the distance ahead, of empty stars, of time he would never get back if he stayed. Then he looked at the alien again. Elias turned away from the gate. He crossed the floor and knelt beside the fallen being. The alien flinched at first, then relaxed when he saw the human's calm face. "It's all right," Elias said softly, though he was not sure the alien understood the words. His voice was slow and steady. The alien tried to speak. The words came out broken and weak. I am sorry, slowing others." Elias gently reached for the walking staff and placed it back into the alien's shaking hand. He adjusted the chest device, wiping dust from its sensor. The red light flickered, then turned a soft yellow. The alien's breathing eased. A shadow passed over them. The gate's light dimmed. "Boarding complete," the station voice announced. The tunnel closed. Elias did not look back. Security drones floated closer, their lenses glowing. They scanned the scene, noted the closed gate, and recorded the human's identity. "Passenger Elias Wren," a drone said in a flat tone. "You have missed your scheduled departure." Elias nodded. "I know." The alien gripped his sleeve with surprising strength. His eyes filled with tears that slid slowly down his face. "You gave up your place," the alien whispered. "That flight, it goes very far." Elias smiled, small and tired. "Then it can wait without me." Medical staff finally arrived. They lifted the alien carefully onto a hover stretcher. As they moved him away, the old being reached out one last time, his fingers trembling in the air. Elias watched until the doors closed behind them. The gate area emptied, the lights dimmed. Gate 9 became just another quiet place in a busy world. Elias stood alone again. No ship, no ticket, no rush. But somewhere deep inside the spaceport, something unseen had already begun to change. The medical wing of Karen Prime was quiet in a different way. Here, the noise of engines faded into soft beeps and slow footsteps. White lights glowed gently above long halls. Machines whispered instead of roared. Elias sat on a narrow bench outside the recovery room. His hands rested on his knees. The spaceport clock floated in the air across from him, its numbers moving forward without care. Every passing minute carried him farther from the flight he had missed. A station official approached him. She was tall, with amber skin and eyes made of glassy crystal. Her uniform was sharp, her voice polite but firm. "You understand," she said, "that missing a rim-class departure carries serious penalties." Elias looked up calmly. "I understand." She tapped her wrist screen. "Rebooking will not be simple. There are fines, clearances, long delays." "That's fine," Elias replied. The official hesitated. She had expected anger, begging, regret. Instead, she saw only quiet acceptance. She nodded once and walked away unsettled. Inside the recovery room, the elderly alien drifted in and out of sleep. His name was Kethar of the Low Rings. He had not traveled beyond his home system in decades. His body was weak now, bones thin, joints worn by time. When he woke fully, the first thing he felt was warmth. And gratitude. He remembered the fall clearly. The hard floor, the rushing feet, the fear that this was how he would end on a cold surface unseen. Then he remembered the human. Not his face, but his presence. Kethar asked the nurse for information. "The human," he said softly. "Did he leave?" The nurse paused. "No," she answered. "He stayed." Kethar closed his eyes. A deep sadness filled him, not for himself, but for what the human had lost. He knew the rim flights. He knew what they cost. He knew what they meant. A simple kindness should not carry such a heavy price. Hours passed. Outside, news of delays spread through the port. Passengers argued with staff. Traders cursed lost deals. Families worried about connections that would now never happen. The missed flight created ripples that moved faster than sound. Elias walked through the port, invisible once more. Screens flashed warnings. Automated messages listed policy violations. His name appeared briefly on a terminal, then vanished under layers of system access. A young alien child watched him pass and tugged at her parent's sleeve. "Why does he look sad?" "He doesn't," the parent replied. "He looks tired." As evening fell, Elias returned to the medical wing. The nurse allowed him inside the room. Kethar turned his head slowly. When he saw the human, his eyes filled with light. "You are here," Kethar said. "Yes," Elias answered. "You should not be," the old alien replied. "You lost something precious." Elias pulled a chair closer. "Things can be replaced," he said. "People can't." Kethar studied him. "You speak like someone who has lost much already." Elias did not respond. Silence settled between them. Not empty silence, but full of thoughts, of memories, of things never said. Finally, Kethar reached out and placed a thin hand over Elias. "In my culture," he said, "debts of life are sacred. They must be answered." Elias smiled gently. "Then live," he said. "That will be enough." Kethar laughed weakly, then coughed. "Humans," he murmured, "so strange." Outside the room, unseen systems recalculated priorities. Access levels shifted. Old codes awakened. A name long absent stirred within the deepest layers of Starway Transit's network. The spaceport lights dimmed for night cycle. Elias remained seated by the bedside of an elderly alien he had met by chance. And far above them, in towers of glass and data, powerful beings began to realize that a very small moment had just become a very large problem. Morning returned to Karen Prime with sharp white light and rising tension. The spaceport woke not with routine order, but with confusion. Departure boards flickered. Arrival lanes stalled. Ships waited in silent lines, their engines warm but unused. At the heart of the problem was one missing passenger. In the upper tower of Starway Transit, the main control chamber filled with voices. Holographic screens floated in the air, each showing red warnings and delayed routes. Executives from many species stood around a long table of light, their faces tight with stress. "This makes no sense," said Director Veles, her scaled fingers tapping the table. "One passenger does not stop an entire rim corridor." A systems analyst replied, voice shaking, "It shouldn't, but the system locked the route after departure. It refused override." "Refused," another snapped. "Nothing refuses us." The analyst swallowed. It flagged the ticket as core-linked. Silence fell. Slowly, the central screen expanded. Lines of ancient code appeared, glowing gold instead of blue. Old authorization marks, unused for years, rose to the surface. A name appeared. Elias Wren. Several executives exchanged uneasy looks. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "He hasn't been active in decades." "Run a full identity trace," Director Veles ordered. "Now." Down below, Elias walked the lower levels of the spaceport. He had not slept. He moved past shops opening for the day, past workers cleaning floors that would soon be dirty again. He stopped at a window that looked out into open space. Ships waited there, hundreds of them. Behind him, arguments grew louder. Travelers demanded answers. Some shouted. Some cried. A merchant collapsed when told his cargo would spoil before delivery. A family missed a reunion that would not happen again for years. All of it traced back to one closed gate. Security teams searched for Elias, not with anger now, but urgency. His name was flagged across internal systems, not as a criminal, not as a threat. As a priority. When they found him, he did not resist. He followed calmly as they escorted him through private corridors few passengers ever saw. Gold-trimmed walls reflected his tired face back at him. He entered a wide chamber filled with screens and sharp-eyed leaders. Director Veles stepped forward. "Elias Wren," she said carefully, "do you know what you've done?" "I helped someone," Elias replied. Her jaw tightened. "You halted 12 interstellar routes, millions of credits lost, thousands stranded." Elias met her gaze. "Then your system is fragile," he said simply. Anger flared across the room, but beneath it lay fear. The analyst cleared his throat. "There's more," he said. "The ticket you used, it carries founder-level access. Only one being ever had that authority." All eyes returned to Elias. "You," Veles said quietly, "you built Starway Transit." Elias looked away. "A long time ago." "You vanished," she said, "left everything." "I left because it stopped being about people," he answered. "I wanted to know if it could still remember." Outside the tower, Kethar watched a broadcast screen from his recovery chair. His heart sank as he saw the humans surrounded by power and blame. "This is my fault," Kethar whispered. He asked the nurse for a public channel. His voice was weak but steady. Across the spaceport, across waiting ships and angry crowds, his message played. "I fell," Kethar said, "and many walked past. One human stopped. He lost his journey so I could keep mine. If this delay enjars you, then be angry at me, but do not punish kindness." The chamber above fell silent as the broadcast reached them. Director Veles closed her eyes. Elias stood still, hands at his sides, ready to accept whatever came. But something had shifted. The system alerts slowly turned from red to amber, routes unlocked, engines powered up, the sky began to move again. Not because of commands, but because someone had finally listened. And in that moment, Starway Transit faced a truth it could no longer avoid. That the smallest human choice had exposed the largest mistake it had ever made. The broadcast did not end when Kethar stopped speaking. For a few seconds, the spaceport stayed frozen in silence. No one shouted. No one moved. The anger that had filled the halls only moments before began to feel heavy, like shame settling into bones. Then something unexpected happened. A young trader stepped forward and spoke to a nearby camera. "I saw the fall," he said quietly. "I didn't stop. I was afraid of missing my ship." Another voice followed, then another. Across Karen Prime, screens filled with faces. A security officer admitted she had noticed the elderly alien but followed protocol instead of her heart. A passenger confessed he looked away because helping felt inconvenient. Even a pilot spoke, saying he once ignored a distress signal to stay on schedule. The story changed shape. It was no longer about delays or losses. It became about a moment everyone shared and failed. In the upper tower, the executives watched as public sentiment turned like a tide. Complaints dropped, threats vanished. In their place came questions. When did we stop caring? Why did the system not wait? Why did one human have to remind us? Director Veles felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. She had spent her life measuring success in numbers. Now those numbers felt small. She turned to Elias. "What do you want?" she asked. Elias looked surprised. "Nothing," he replied. "That's not an answer," she said. "It's the only honest one," Elias said. "I didn't stop to teach a lesson. I stopped because someone needed help." Down in the medical wing, Kethar's condition improved steadily. Color returned to his skin. His breathing grew strong, but his mind stayed restless. He watched the ongoing coverage, his heart heavy with guilt. He asked to be taken to the main hall. The doctors resisted at first, but Kethar insisted. "I am old," he said. "If I wait too long, courage may leave me." When he arrived, the crowd parted naturally. No guards pushed them back. No announcements warned them away. Beings of every shape watched as the elderly alien moved slowly toward the center platform. Elias saw him and rushed forward. "You shouldn't be here," he said gently. Kethar smiled. "Then we share another mistake," he replied. He turned to the crowd. His voice was stronger now, clear and steady. "In my life," Kethar said, "I have owned ships, stations, and wealth. None of it helped me when I fell. What helped me was a hand." He gestured to Elias. "This human did not ask who I was. He did not check my value. He did not weigh the cost. He chose to see me." The hall felt warmer somehow, though the temperature had not changed. Director Veles stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately, she removed her insignia and placed it on the floor. "We forgot our purpose," she said to Elias and to everyone. "Starway Transit was built to connect lives, not just systems." She looked at the crowd. "We will correct this." Orders moved fast after that. Compensation offered freely. Medical assistance expanded. New training began immediately, focused not on speed but on awareness. Elias watched it all with quiet eyes. "You could take control again," Veles said softly. "The company is yours." Elias shook his head. "Ownership is easy," he said. "Responsibility is harder. I came to see if you could carry it." Kethar placed a hand on Elias' arm. "You gave more than you know," he said. Elias answered, "So did you." As ships finally departed, the spaceport felt different. Not calmer, not slower. Kinder. And somewhere deep within Starway Transit's core systems, a new priority was written, not by code alone, but by memory. A reminder that would never be erased. That sometimes stopping was the most important journey of all. The spaceport returned to motion, but not to normal. Ships lifted off in slow lines, engines glowing like steady hearts. Announcements sounded softer, more careful. Staff members watched the crowds with new eyes, no longer rushing past faces in need. The delay had ended, yet something remained, an invisible pause inside everyone. Elias stood near a wide window, looking out at the stars. He had not planned to stay this long. His journey beyond the rim felt distant now, like a dream from another life. Director Veles approached him without guards, without authority marks. She looked smaller somehow, as if power had finally loosened its grip. "You didn't answer before," she said. "What you will do next?" Elias thought for a moment. "I will leave," he said. "Eventually." "You could guide us," she pressed. "The board will listen now, they fear you." Elias turned to her. "Fear builds nothing that lasts." Veles nodded slowly. She understood that now. Across the hall, Kethar rested in a seat designed for his fragile body. He watched families reunite, watched passengers help one another with luggage. His eyes filled with quiet wonder. "In all my years," he said to the nurse beside him, "I have never seen a place learn so quickly." Later that day, Elias was called into the deep archive chamber. Few knew it existed. Fewer still had access. The door opened only to his presence. Inside, memories waited. Holograms of the past surrounded him. Young engineers laughing, early ships failing and trying again, hopeful beings boarding the first routes. Elias saw himself there, younger, brighter, full of belief. Starway Transit had once been built by hands like his. Human hands, alien hands, together. Then the images shifted. Growth became speed, speed became pressure, pressure became numbers, faces blurred, kindness was trimmed away like excess weight. Elias closed his eyes. "I should have stayed," he whispered. A voice answered from behind. "No," Kethar said gently, "you left so others could choose." Elias turned, surprised. "You followed me." Kethar smiled, slowly. They watched the past together. "What you built still carries your shape," Kethar said. "It only forgot its heart." Outside, Director Velis addressed the workforce. She spoke without scripts, without shields. "We failed," she said, "and we were shown how to stand again." Policies changed that night. Emergency compassion protocols were added. Any passenger in distress could delay a gate. No fines, no punishments, only shared responsibility. The board resisted at first. Profits would fall, schedules would bend. Then the numbers came in. Public trust rose higher than ever recorded. Bookings surged. Volunteers applied by the thousands. Beings chose Starway Transit not because it was fastest, but because it felt safe. Elias prepared to leave the next morning. A small ship waited for him, offered quietly without ceremony. Kethar stood beside him at the dock. "You changed the galaxy," Kethar said. Elias shook his head. I didn't, I just stopped walking." Kethar laughed softly. "That may be the same thing." As Elias boarded the ship, he looked back at the spaceport one last time. He saw not metal and glass, but people, watching, learning. The ship doors closed. Starway Transit watched its founder depart, not as an owner, not as a ruler, but as a reminder. And for the first time in a very long while, the company felt proud of what it carried between the stars. Elias' ship moved quietly through open space. It was not large or fast. It did not shine like the great liners of Starway Transit. It was simple, built for one traveler and long thoughts. Stars passed like slow memories outside the window. For the first time since the spaceport, Elias allowed himself to rest. But the galaxy did not. News of what happened at Karen Prime spread far beyond trade routes. It moved through private channels, cultural networks, and personal messages, not as a scandal, not as drama. As a story. On distant worlds, pilots paused before liftoff to check their terminals for distress signals. Station workers rewrote local rules to allow delays for medical needs. Even rival transport guilds quietly adjusted policies, unwilling to be seen as the ones who would not stop. No one mentioned Elias' name at first. They spoke of a human. Just a human. Kethar returned home weeks later, slower but stronger. His family gathered around him, listening as he told the story again and again. Each time, his voice grew steadier. "You should honor him," one of his kin said. "He saved your life." Kethar shook his head. "No, he reminded me how to value it." Kethar used his remaining influence carefully, not to gain power, but to open doors for others who had fallen behind. Old debts were forgiven. Forgotten travelers were brought home. He spent what little time he had left making sure no one he met felt invisible. At Starway Transit, the changes deepened. Training rooms replaced some executive offices. New leaders were chosen not for speed, but for judgment. Employees were encouraged to stop, to ask, to care, even when it cost time. There were mistakes, there were delays, profits dipped, then rose again in unexpected ways. Passengers wrote messages instead of complaints. "Thank you for waiting. Thank you for helping my mother. Thank you for seeing us." Director Velis read every one. Late one night, she stood alone in the control chamber and watched a ship pause at a gate. A medical alert had triggered. A crew member ran to assist a fallen traveler. The ship waited. Velis felt her eyes burn. She did not wipe the tears away. Far beyond the rim, Elias landed on a quiet station at the edge of mapped space. Few beings lived there. Fewer still recognized him. That was how he wanted it. He helped where he could, fixed broken machines, shared meals, listened to stories that had never traveled far. Once a young alien asked him, "Why do humans stop when others do?" Elias thought for a long time. Because we know how fast everything can disappear, he finally said. The questioner nodded, not fully understanding, but feeling the truth in the words. Years passed. The story changed as all stories do. Some added details, some removed names, but the core remained the same. A place, a fall, a choice. Children learned it in schools, not as history but as guidance. When asked what made humans dangerous, wise elders answered, "They can break you." When asked what made them special, the same elders said, "They might stop to help you." One day, Elias received a message, short, quiet. Kethar had passed peacefully. Elias sat beneath a dim star and closed his eyes. He did not feel loss alone. He felt completion. Kethar's final words were included. "Tell the human I lived well after I fell." Elias smiled. Somewhere, a Starway transit ship delayed its departure by 3 minutes. A child had dropped their breathing mask. A crew member ran to help. The galaxy did not notice, but it remembered. Because long after ships and systems changed, one truth stayed alive: that the greatest journeys were not measured in distance, but in the moments someone chose not to walk away. Many years later, the spaceport of Karen Prime looked different. The towers were taller, the ships were faster, the gates opened with softer sounds, but the biggest change could not be seen. It lived in behavior, in pauses, in eyes that searched the crowd instead of the clock. At Gate 9, a small plaque rested near the wall. It did not carry a name. It carried a sentence. No journey matters more than a life. Travelers often stopped to read it. Some asked what it meant. Staff members answered with a story, always a little different, but always true at its heart. Far from there, on a quiet world near the edge of known space, Elias lived in a modest home. He was older now. His hair had turned white. His hands carried the marks of work, not power. Few visitors came. Those who did were usually lost, broken, or searching for something they could not name. Elias welcomed them all. One evening, a Starway transit vessel descended unexpectedly. It was not delayed. It was not damaged. It came only to stop. Director Velis stepped out, older as well, her posture slower, her eyes wiser. She carried no guards. "They named a generation of ships after the rule," she told Elias. "Not after you, after the choice." Elias nodded. "That's better." She hesitated, then added, "You should know, the galaxy changed how it speaks of humans." Elias raised an eyebrow. "They say humans are dangerous," Velis continued. "Because you care, because you will break systems to save one person, because you don't always choose efficiency." Elias laughed softly. "That's fair." As the sun dipped low, a group of children gathered near Elias' home. Different species, different worlds. They sat in the dust and listened as Velis told the old story. About a fall, about a gate, about a human who turned around. One child asked, did the human know he owned the airline? Velis smiled. "No, and that's why it mattered." High above them, ships crossed the sky in steady lines. One paused briefly before departure. A maintenance worker had slipped. Hands reached out, time waited. The pause cost nothing. Across the galaxy, similar pauses happened every day. Quiet, unrecorded, uncelebrated. But together, they formed something larger than any company, law, or empire. They formed trust. When Elias passed years later, there were no monuments built, no statues raised. He had asked for none. Instead, Starway Transit updated its core system one final time. A hidden protocol, impossible to delete. If kindness required delay, the system would wait. And so the stars learned something simple. That power did not come from speed. That greatness did not come from ownership. That sometimes, the most human thing in the galaxy, was choosing to stop. And because one simple human once did, the universe became a little less cold.